around the world. This is Purple 22 coming at you live with my co-host Styled Pigeon. GM,
Hey
my friend,
everybody.
what's new?
Oh man. Okay, so we do this at the top of every episode, but I'm really excited about this one. Got my new shoes in today.
Hey,
You see
oh,
the
they look
pigeons on
so
there?
good.
Yeah.
Dang,
Even the
man.
even the tongue is printed. I thought that was really cool. Like from a
Oh,
me.
sick.
You see them?
This is great content, man. This is why we do this for the
I'm
content.
so excited about it. I had to wear them on the show. So they literally like 20 minutes before the show. The package got here, and I was like
Oh,
tying
perfect.
them together. Yeah.
That's awesome. So
So
this is your first time actually seeing the shoes, right?
yeah, this is the first physical version of the shoe that I've gotten to see, and I'm super happy with them. I was a little bit worried they're being contract manufactured in China, so the ship times are trash. So sorry about that, everybody. But I'm not Amazon, and so I was a little bit worried about quality, which is why I wanted to go ahead and get some myself and just make sure, if I need to pull that off, I go ahead and do it now. And I'm super happy with the quality. So they're on styledpigeon.com under Flutter Feet. If you just scroll down the page, you'll see them, or click on some of the other links too. I'd appreciate that as well.
They look super sick, man. I got to be honest. I've been holding off waiting to see what yours looked like when you got them in person first. But now that I see them, I'm like, oh man, I need some. That's so cool. Yeah, and I'm not repping my shirt today, but I wore my purple Bitcoin shirt to Consensus, and I mean, I'm pretty sure it helped some people find me. I had several like, wait a second, you're purple suede, right? Like, I mean, yes.
All purple head to toe.
Yeah. So definitely check out stylepigeon.com. Get you some merch. Those shoes are dope, man. I can't wait for like people to see those. It's just so unique, So that's really cool. Good work. Super
So
exciting.
also this week I've had some roundups go through. So I'm starting to experience that euphoric like checking my email every so often to see if the
Nice.
roundup went through yet. So you want to
That's
tell them about
cool.
our sponsor?
Yeah, for sure. I have a quick question though for you. Like, do you like
Go
the
for it.
new UI on the email? Like, we changed that recently to like for roundups.
So I
If it
didn't
doesn't ring a
notice the
bell,
change.
check it. Basically, there's social sharing now where it's like you can click a
Oh yeah,
button
yeah,
and be
yeah,
like, I
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
rounded up into so and so.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, anyway. So
So I
yeah,
do like this. I haven't
cool.
tried it yet, so I'll test that out this afternoon and just send out a
Nice, man.
tweet.
Nice. Well,
Cool.
yeah. So on that note, our sponsors that we're talking about, Roundly X, they are a simple to use app that allows you to round up your purchases into spare change and other digital assets, kind of like Acorns, if you're familiar with that. This set it and forget it DCA tool helps you build wealth safely and conveniently over time. And it really does add up, man. Like spare change ended up helping me pay off my Subaru back during the start of the pandemic. So if you'd like to sign up, you can get a Bitcoin bonus with code Gingerly, and you can actually get $15 of Bitcoin right now when you sign up. So check it out. Round up this purchases. It's a great way to save, and yeah, it definitely stacks. It's great. I was shocked to pay off my Subaru with something like this. But anyway, so we have a fascinating discussion today. Style Pigeon is going to kind of be interviewing me about tokenizing the world. So before we dive in, Nick, would you mind rolling the intro video, please? Nice, man. Well, hey, I'm really excited to dive into this. I think the timing is great because everybody's talking about tokens right now with the meme coin explosion that's going on. And while this episode isn't really about that, my roots in crypto definitely go back to thinking about how revolutionary tokens and smart contracts are. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, and I actually am the one that's driving this conversation. Like I came up with the outline and stuff based on the fact that we were actually talking on, I think, the Bitcoin Badgers stream, or we were playing VR golf, but whatever. Whenever it happened, we were discussing about tokens, and a couple of things occurred to me, like the BRC20 and SRC20 tokens. We were talking about really what's the difference there. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know what they are, and it hit me that I was like, oh, this is actually kind of a big gap in my crypto knowledge. I know what tokens are essentially, but I don't know all of the different technical distinguishments between, or disambiguations between those tokens. Like what's the compare and contrast sheet look like for this ecosystem.
Totally.
So that's one of the things that I wanted to dive into. But here on Gingerly, we try to break things down in a gingerly fashion for those who have not been in the crypto sphere for a while. It's really important to us that we teach newer enthusiasts or people who are just looking into things these basic bits of information so that you can consume it in an entertaining and enjoyable way instead of listening to a dev drone on about something that you can't quite grasp using terms that you've never heard before. Those people are extremely necessary, and I've even launched NFT projects and things to make art about how phenomenal they are, but they're not the best salespeople, and they're not the best. It's not the most absorbable fashion that you can
Yeah.
have the information in. So that's what we're going to try to do here a little bit today, and then we're also probably going to have some ridiculous conversation in the meantime. So
Like usual.
yeah, per the usual.
Yeah.
So explain to me how tokens are actually created and what is their function on the blockchain.
Yeah, so this is a fantastically general question, and I like how beginner this is because, like you said, we want to like go as base layer as possible. So my first, I guess, clarification for that is it would depend on which particular chain that you're talking about. But I think let's like right now, for sake of beginning conversation, most people know what Bitcoin is. Most people know what Ethereum is. At least they've heard of those two, I
Mhm.
think. And so, like, maybe we should talk about the differences between how tokens are made on those. Because you mentioned at the beginning of the show both BRC and SRC20 tokens, which is really fascinating to me because you're like, oh, I'm such a beginner. But honestly, a lot of Ethereum people out there probably don't even know. They're like SRC and BRC. What on earth is that? That doesn't make any sense. So, to be
Okay, so let
clear,
me
oh, go
let me
ahead,
try to
please.
ask the question in a different way.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with in the blockchain technology space, what is a token?
Aha, I like that question a lot better. So I would say so the blockchain is the database or the ledger, if you will. I ledger is such a weird word to me because kids these days don't really know what a ledger is, right? Like no one
Yeah,
balances their checkbook, but that's basically what we're referring to. It's like a
it's like
record
in
of
mob movies.
transactions. There, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, the dude writing down all of the transactions. Good way. So that's the database, right? That's like the internet, if you will, that things are built on top of, right? It's the information highway that allows things like tokens and NFTs to exist. So tokens are digital representations of whatever you want it to be, really. I mean, it could be an NFT or it could be a crypto, if you want to think of it like that. They're the same thing. They're basically like scarce and individual and unique units, right, that are built on top of a blockchain. I think that's like maybe a
Okay.
techie way to
So
say it.
so a token is kind of like a ledger entry that has significance almost. Or am I understanding this incorrectly?
I don't think so. Like, so yeah, a ledger entry that has significance, but it's not just significance, right? It's like uniqueness.
Okay.
So that's the value of blockchain is that you can't you can't control C like copy paste assets, right? There,
Right.
if you create an asset, it is individually and uniquely itself, and there's not another one of those.
Okay. So it's
The
it's
supply parameters set
a
on it.
a token is a unique digital asset that is whose existence is evidenced on the blockchain ledger.
Right. The blockchain basically says, yes, this does exist in this amount of quantity.
Right. So
Yep.
the blockchain is actually what creates the viability or scarcity of these tokens because of the fact that it prevents the copy paste function or the
Exactly
duplication
right.
function. Right.
That's how it's
So
different from the internet, right? On the internet, you could just copy paste the same image 100,000 times,
it's
you know.
also how it's different from any Elder Scrolls game ever.
I mean, sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no,
You
that's a
can't
great
play Elder
comparison.
Scrolls without duplication.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Or I mean any video game, right? Like the video game assets are a great comparison. Like Fortnite,
Mhm.
for instance. Anybody can spin up a copy of the game and earn a particular item, and it's the same item as, like if I do it, then you do it. It's basically the same. Um,
So So let me pose one more thing, and then we'll answer this question in the chat because I think it's a relevant question. But so okay, these tokens are living there. The blockchain is actually creating the function that things like video games and duplication, all that, don't have.
Right.
And that's the reason that video game items aren't worth anything, but tokens can be worth something
Hmm.
if there's associated value there of some sort, right?
Right. Right. And that comes,
Okay,
yeah, that comes
cool.
from the scarcity specifically, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a finite supply of whatever token that you're talking about. Presumably, like it is possible to program tokens that are inflationary, so they continue to produce and that thereby are infinite. But that's the cool thing about the blockchain is that there's tons of different limitations. I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy right now, and in the beginning, you create your character, right? And there's like a gazillion different combinations of ways that you can like spit out this final character. It's the same way in a token. You have like a a character creation page on your token. You get to decide all of that crazy stuff. Will it
Mm.
be infinite? Will it be inflationary? Will it be deflationary? Will it be static? Like all of that stuff.
Okay, gotcha. And at this point, that stuff's actually pretty straightforward and easy to do, right?
These days it is, yeah. Do you want to jump into that question real quick?
Yeah, yeah. So tell me from your perspective the difference between a regular token and a non-fungible token, aka an NFT.
So this is where I think people get a little tripped up because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, they're the same. The only difference is that you choose one has a JPEG associated with it or metadata, right? And one
Hmm.
doesn't. And it's like the purpose of that particular thing. So they both start off as a token, but then you have to decide, okay, how am I going to be using this token? Because there's different functionality for NFTs. Um, what's interesting to me though is that like so for instance token gating, we talk about this a lot, which just
Hmm.
means you hold an NFT, you get access to a website or something like that, right? Pretty basic. People could do that with a cryptocurrency, but for some reason we don't. It's just
Right.
an accepted cultural thing, I feel like, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day it's the same. You could do that, you could do it with a
S-
crypto.
So essentially, if you wanted to, you could have like a DAO, right? A decentralized autonomous organization. And when you log in to go to a vote or something like that, it checks your wallet to see how many tokens you have in that ecosystem and then
Yep.
says, okay, well, your votes have this much weight or that much weight based on. Now, you probably wouldn't want to do that because it's like creating a DAO that has an oligarchy
Oh,
innately
DAOs do
built
that all the
into it.
time though. Like you're
Okay, so
describing the go-to like form and function for DAOs.
and then that's how you would build a hierarchy around the structure of the DAO, right?
Right. It's
So and
established
I'm not saying
interest.
that's
Yeah.
innately bad. It's just one of those things where you're like, wait, like, are we doing the exact same thing we've been doing, or like, what's
And
going on
again,
here?
it's that character creation aspect, right? Like
Hmm.
you might think that that's a, not the best way to go. And so, yeah, you would structure it some different way, that wouldn't be that same way, but it's up to
Right.
you.
Okay. Cool. So let's let me ask you another question.
Yeah. Shoot.
Would you say that you have a list of those different character item features? Like, if I wanted like a certain type of hair on my create a character token,
Yeah.
what's the range of types of hair that I can have?
Hmm. That's
Sorry,
that's a
in
great question.
specifically in regards to um, like you, I would imagine you set the amount that can be minted,
Hmm.
um, and you set maybe a cost or something associated. What's that list of things look like?
Yeah, so it's broad and it varies a lot because there are thousands of blockchains that all offer different solutions at this point. But if you go way back in time to 2016, which in crypto world is like an eternity ago, when I was first getting started, I was drawn to Ethereum over Bitcoin at that time, to my great chagrin, because of this.
Shame.
Yes. If you want to go look at pricing data, you can go look and see what I was snubbing Bitcoin at. I wouldn't be doing this show and would be retired on an island, basically. But there were smart auction or not smart auctions. God, NeoSwap is getting to my brain. The smart contracts, right? They were so revolutionary. That was like Ethereum's main marketing ploy, if you will. But these
It's its
smart
main
contracts,
feature. Let's be fair to Ethereum.
yeah,
We like to kind of trash Ethereum a little bit. Ethereum is a really interesting and cool blockchain, and we snub it, but it's just because of our very conservative way of going about this, and conservative in a literal sense, not a political sense.
And from my
Um,
perspective, I
and
feel
it's
like I've been
costly.
snubbed. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
exactly because when I started, so I found Ethereum back in the day when it was like the only option to play around with, and they did a
right.
good job of writing a blog where they were like, here are examples of what the code to create a token would look like, right? And they said, and then you could manipulate the token and set your own ticker and set your own supply. And like supply is fascinating because Bitcoin has 21 million. That's like its main thing. And so people are like, well, what if we had 420 million? Or what if we had 21 billion? Or what if we
69
had,
million,
yeah, you
all of the
know,
same degen.
no, totally. That's how it is. And how cool is it that you get to select your own ticker, and then, like I mentioned earlier, so Bitcoin is technically like it's currently an inflationary token, which just means that there are tokens that are issued right to the system rather than tokens being taken away from the system.
Hmm.
So that's a deflationary system. You start off with a current supply and then maybe tokens get burned along the way or something like that. But you get to decide all of this stuff because you're the person that's creating the character, so to speak. And Ethereum itself, and this is interesting to note, is like it started off as like a proof of work and then it moved to a proof of stake. And so we don't have to get into that, but there were values between doing one or the other, which plays into what you can create. And so as
Okay.
time progressed, more and more competitors to Ethereum, other blockchains started coming up because people started thinking, well, I want to be able to make a DAO better and more affordable because Ethereum started getting expensive, right? Or I want to be able to, create subnets and create a place for NFTs to thrive on because people started getting bored with tokens and wanted to have images associated with the tokens. Um, so that's a very loose answer, but I think if I were to explain it super straightforward, the basics of a token that you need to decide on are the name, which is the fun part, in my opinion, the supply, which is also a lot of fun because crypto people like to talk about supply and demand. And so you get to decide, the economics of your token, or tokenomics is what people refer to it as, whether it's inflationary or deflationary, which chain it's going to run on these days, and a variety of other economic features like that. Honestly, there's so many options that it's up to your creativity of what you want.
So really, it comes down to, like, if I were to fully understand tokens, if I were to set myself on a mission to be like, I want to know anything and everything there is about tokens, I would actually have to leech from the TradFi markets a good bit, or maybe not TradFi markets, but more like fundamental economics,
Yes.
in order to just understand what it is I'm trying to create before I create it, right? Like I'd have to go down that whole rabbit hole first.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise you're just kind of like throwing darts at a wall and hoping something sticks. So I don't talk about this very often, but I have a, pretty specific, um, like economic upbringing. So starting in like early high school, I started studying Austrian economics. And then I was in speech and debate. And so I just nerded out and like really started focusing on like what supply and demand means and, you know, why people believe that the dollar has value and stuff like this, just on my own interest, even before I found crypto. So I was really set up when I came to crypto to say, oh wow, all of these ideas that I have about ways that we could experiment with the economy, like what if the dollar just turned into a deflationary asset tomorrow? I mean, that's a great question from a theoretical perspective. With crypto, you can try that, right?
Right.
And sometimes these crazy, dare I say, even meme coins take off because of their tokenomics and because of the people behind them and the belief in the system that they create sometimes overnight. And that's, it may be scammy and people may lose money, but at the end of the day, they're experimenting with economic, functions that are different than what we use on an everyday basis. And that's something that I really geek out with over tokens myself.
Yeah. So the stuff that I geek out on here is like almost policy level stuff where, like you mentioned it being scammy. I want to clarify that that's not new. This is
No.
not something that happens because of blockchain.
Right.
This is, or crypto, because there's a lot of media messaging right now around how, like, Bitcoiners are all drug dealers and swindlers or something, and
Yeah.
is so ridiculous. So, like, the actual
Yep.
percentage of illegitimacy that happens on the blockchain is so low.
It's less than
is
1%, and that's actually been proven by studies.
Which I
Coin
believe is
Yeah.
actually the lower than the US dollar, right?
Yeah, US dollar is
Yeah.
like 4% or something like that.
So, like, you think about everything that happened that was illegitimate up until blockchain was because of regular currency. It happened in
Yeah.
regular currencies. So,
Um,
um,
yeah. A
all
good
that
example
scammy
of
stuff is
this,
not new.
yeah, pop culture. Think of the Wolf of Wall Street. Like you don't have to know anything about crypto to know that financial scams have been going on forever. And if
Or
you
the Federal
didn't know
Reserve.
that, yeah, I mean, some people don't even know what the Fed is, right? But they can wrap their head around, oh, Wolf of Wall Street, like using pink slips to scam unknowing people into losing tons of money. It's
Right.
not crypto, it's humans.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
humans.
Which is actually okay. Sorry, this is an interesting, like, philosophical thing because,
We said
and I
we would do
realized,
this at the beginning of the show, so let's do it.
yeah, that's true. So, with I'm so sorry, you just derail illicit activity and whatnot. Um, all of that happened, and then we are hearing about how Bitcoin somehow facilitates that, and it's just so far from the truth. And what crypto was created to do was to eliminate that stuff.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
trying to take the human aspect of money away from money. How can I have money that I can trust and rely on, and say, okay, so a perfect example is like insider trading.
yeah,
We can follow the movement of your wallet. We know it's all public, right?
yeah.
And except, or on Bitcoin at least, and I'm pretty sure
On most blockchains.
most blockchains use this same philosophy, um, unless it's a CBDC, which it won't be. But regardless, so Bitcoin is fully public. You can just check the ledger. So when somebody decides to send an inordinate amount of money to this wallet or that wallet right before a big election or something, like, we see it,
We
we
know
know what
about
you're
it.
doing.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you uh, are about to roll out a big policy change from the SEC, and all of a sudden all of your funds move around the week prior, we see it,
Mhm.
right? And so blockchain is actually eliminating corruption, not establishing a framework for it.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
framework's been there. That's how New York City got built. Okay.
yep.
It's
And
like,
also, yeah,
anyway,
I
sorry.
think a good point here too is that, we hear about crypto scams all the time because blockchains are so public. I
Right.
think that's important to note. Like you might hear about big banks paying fees because they, swindled the system or whatever occasionally, but it's a little whisper and then it's gone. With crypto, it's the big challenger on the street. It's trying to challenge the system. And so of course there's lots of incentive to badmouth it publicly. And that's easy because it's transparent. So I think
Right.
that's just something to remember. Like if the dollar was as transparent as crypto, we'd be hearing about insider trading and scams and like all of this crazy crap from Congress like every other hour.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. So, with all of this stuff going on, how do tokens play a part in taking us to a new paradigm? Like, because to me, it's, the last new technology was banknotes, right? We said, this is a banknote. It's like, why is this piece of paper valuable? Well, this piece of paper is valuable because it's backed by X,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Gold, silver, platinum, whatever.
or just the U.S. military, right? Like,
Sure. Nowadays.
yeah, Nick and I have joked around a good bit in the past about, like, what's the dollar backed by right now and its violence.
Hmm.
I think there's a stringent or a serious argument to be made for that.
I do
Um,
too.
how do tokens play a part in taking our current monetary system? Maybe I'm asking too general a question. Taking our current monetary system and transforming it into something new seems to me to have something important to do with what a token is. Do you agree with that? Can you patch that together for me?
Yeah. I think so. I think what I mentioned earlier about being able to experiment from an economic perspective is important.
Hmm.
So with previously, if you wanted to experiment with the financial system, you did it from within government. Like you had to be not elected most of the time, you had to be appointed, right? And so getting to be in power to do that is difficult. And then the consequences that come with economic experimentation are pretty radically huge. Like you're like, okay, I want to change, like Nixon, for instance, taking us off of the gold standard. That was like economic experimentation that really went bad, but there was no other way to, like, I don't think, experiment with that and beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Right.
not,
You just have to be like, "We,"
yeah,
and
let's
that's
just try it,
like,
I guess.
okay.
Yeah. So I think with what's really important about understanding what a token is that anybody can make a token. If you have access to the internet, you can make a token and you can set it with any economic idea that you think is right. There's stuff from, like, we're just going to airdrop everything to everybody and have it be ultra decentralized, or
Mhm.
there's going to be like, we're going to require you to come click a button every day and we're going to issue you a certain amount of tokens, or there's like, run a piece of machinery for so long and then you get tokens, or there's so many ideas. Basically, my point here is that if you're an individual and you don't like the way that the current economy or government is doing things, you can experiment with your own form of economy with a token. And I think that a great example of this is Pepe coin. Like, I don't think that I could get away with not mentioning Pepe coin in this episode. And like, it's this cultural phenomenon that just came overnight and is just explosively huge. There's $1.5 billion of volume being done in this worthless meme token. Like, Pepe coin is as worthless as it sounds. It's literally just a representation on the blockchain that has a particular ticker, but it happens to be backed by one of the most powerful memes of all time. And it had the right social people behind it. And it has meme style tokenomics, right? There's literally 420 trillion, 69 billion tokens or something like that. They did it for the meme of it, but so many people believe in that meme of the 42069 Pepe ethos that
Mhm.
they started their own economy. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Nick. This is the
I think
site. I'm not endorsing this at all. I'm not saying go buy this, but I'm saying that this is a really great, like, just organic example of tokens just doing their own thing as an economic and social experiment. And it's fascinating.
yeah. Yeah. It is fascinating, and I'm not the type of internet kid that is into that sort of thing, but I've been watching, one, I do love memes. I just typically love different memes than other people do.
Sure.
Um, Mostly Lord of the Rings memes.
Yeah.
So,
Which
but
we share lots of, yeah, on a
yeah,
regular
yeah, we go
basis.
back
Our
all the
DMs
time.
look amazing.
Um, yeah, so Paul's in the comments saying, just buy Bitcoin, be smart, be safe, stack sats, and hold. Um, but we are talking about tokens, so we do want to see some different experiments and things that are happening. And I think that one of the biggest benefits to all of this experimentation is better understanding human beings.
Hmm.
The word
Yes.
experiment indicates that you're in some sense doing science, right?
Yeah.
We're going to try this and see if it works, see if there's something predictable. And while I am on the Bitcoin train as far as like that's what I think is going to be uh, the most successful moving forward personally, because of the quality of that experiment to begin with. I would love to see somebody, like, if you can figure out how to make Bitcoin significantly better, or blockchain technology or cryptocurrency significantly better, and it results in a net positive. I'm 100% on board with that.
Yep.
Do I think that you'll be able to outcompete Bitcoin? Probably not, but you never know. I mean, in 2007, I didn't think Bitcoin would do anything because I'd never
Right.
heard of it. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, let's run the experiment and see what happens with meme coins in particular. And I think this might be a longer conversation that me and the curator need to get into from an I, ideological standpoint. Is what are memes if not
Hmm.
myths?
Yeah,
Memes
memes are
memes are
powerful. That's what I've been saying.
memes are extremely effectively packaged ideas that are innately understandable given a particular context, right? So, like for instance, the Lord of the Rings meme where you say one does not simply walk into Mordor, right?
Yeah,
Um, Boromir or whatever the actor's name is, I can never remember. He dies in everything.
Sean Bean, right?
Yeah, he's infamously dies in everything that he's ever been
Yeah.
in. Um, that idea is something that has nearly infinite depth to it, right? Because
Yes.
in the films, Boromir is saying like, "Look, you want to accomplish X, and I just want to let you know that's not going to be as easy as you think it is. Like, let's talk about what actually needs to happen here. That's something that you can do at work. I do a meme of the day at work, and it's all related to telesales,
Right.
right? And I do one every day. I've been doing this for months and months and have not run out of ideas or concepts to relay about sales and telesales that I can always package in a meme somehow. So there's something extremely powerful there that I think is creating sort of a new underlying mythology that we can communicate with each other based on these new myths, as
Hmm.
opposed to, back in the day, we talk about the golden rule, right? Well, the whole golden rule idea actually comes from biblical scripture. So that's which I put in the category of myth, technically, right? So no offense to anybody's religious beliefs or anything like that. I'm just using words to talk about things. Um, It's frustrating to have to explain that to people, but I really don't want you to be turned off to all of this based on the fact that I said one thing about the Bible. Huge supporter, love the book. Um, so all of this mythology adds up to, oh wait, these tokens are actually valuable in a whole extra economic sense,
Yeah.
where we're not just doing experiments with economics, we're doing sociology experiments as well here.
Because that
And
plays in with money, right? Money is not something that is like wholly on its own.
mm,
As humans interacting with money, you must have sociological interaction. And I think that's something that people forget all the time. So that's why
right.
meme coins are so powerful.
That's why communism doesn't work, right? It's like
Yeah.
communism is a beautiful idea,
Yes.
but when you actually get it going in the real world, corruption happens, right?
Yep.
And then that's a human aspect. So it's like we did all the math and it's supposed to work, and then all of a sudden it doesn't. Like what
Yeah.
happened? How did we
Right.
end up with millions of corpses?
Humans happen.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's corruption, it's evil, it's all of that stuff is there as well, just like it is in our society, right?
Yeah.
We're experiencing a lot of corruption right now, in my opinion, in the U.S., and I think that cryptocurrency solves a lot of that. So,
Something that
go ahead.
yeah, so to kind of put a bow on that, I think so something that my boss John Ennis, CEO of NeoSwap, says all the time is that yeah, Bitcoin is like the big kid on the block. I personally think that Bitcoin is always going to be around, but there are use cases. How do I say this? There are other use cases outside of just digital gold, right?
Mhm,
And other cryptocurrencies. And I think like I'm not a maximalist, but I think that saying Bitcoin and crypto is important because there isn't not another cryptocurrency that's like Bitcoin. Nobody controls Bitcoin. It's literally math. There's not a company, there's not a person that is behind it. Do I think that it's a good idea to have crypto companies like Solana that has a company that has a person behind it that is like ultra cheap and fast and can be used for like video games? Well, yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. We're not going to build Fortnite on Bitcoin. Like
right,
not in the next 10 years, I don't think, just because of the way that the tech is. But we don't have to build Fortnite on Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
yes,
We can use other tokens. Like that's why tokens exist, is to be able to fill gaps that digital gold doesn't, right? It's
right.
not a bad thing that we can't build Fortnite on Bitcoin. We don't have to do that. I think
And
that's
now,
something
so
that's important to point out.
so this is actually why we've had why we call it Web 3. This is actually the technical reason that this is called Web 3, right? Is because there is a progression from Web 1, where you have no blockchain involvement, right? And when they created the internet, it was Web 1. You had a
Read
place
only.
on the
That's
internet
what people
that you
say.
can upload photos, basically, right? You can just put them on there, and you have to do all the coding and all the work in the background. People can go and view that. Awesome. It's super great technology. Then you have Web 2, and all of a sudden we introduced all of this functionality to the internet, right? Amazing accomplishments. Sammy Kamkar being part of the driving force there, from what I understand. Super cool, in my opinion. Then we have Web3 because of the invention of something called blockchain technology, which is based in cryptography, to be able to create this really cool ledger system to track everything. That we call Web3 because what we're doing is we're building further infrastructure on the internet. Prior to Web3, we couldn't do this. Now we have this whole new thing that comes around. And at first we go, okay, this helps us fix money. Oh my God, we can finally move past the gold standard. We can move past fiat currency and get to something that's more important, more helpful to society at large, in managing how money works and how we do trade. So tokens obviously being a part of that, to like kind of connect my ramblings to the episode. Um, but that's not the only thing that tokens can be used for. Tokens don't have to be just money. They can be used as video game items, for example. I like gaming, so this is typically the route that I go with this. And if you've got new projects that are in gaming, hit me up on at Style Pigeon on Twitter, because I want to hear about them, and see what cool stuff y'all are building. So we have this like money thing that can come from tokenization. We have gaming stuff that can come from tokenization. What in that basket is there other than those simple examples? What can we use tokens as leverage to accomplish moving forward? And a couple of different ideas might be things like real estate or commodities trading. Um,
Healthcare.
Healthcare would be a great example. What are your top 2 or 3?
Yeah, this is great. So in 2017, when I was living in DC, one of my favorite things to do was to go to lunch with one of my buddies, and we would literally just do this. We had a pen and paper, and we were just writing out ideas of like, what can we use tokens and smart contracts for that is a waiting to be disrupted. And back then, it was like, oh, we're going to be the Uber of whatever, right? Everyone
Sure.
used to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that. One of the ideas that we tossed around back then was like creating a rental system, right? So right now, like paying your rent is usually pretty difficult. Like, you know, for me, I am in an apartment complex owned by a corporation, and it costs like $12 to pay them with my checking account and like $40 to pay them with a credit card. And that's because of all of the insane middlemen, in between me and them receiving the money. I don't have to list them all out. You could do some research and figure that out. But with tokens, we were like, hey, like if we had this system where the renter and the rentee are both on the same blockchain, they're both using tokens, they could pay a fraction of a cent to transact the money. And with the smart contract, you could have it set so that it like, auto escrows
Hmm.
at every point in the month. And you could even have like a review period where like, is everything cool with the house? Like, did you pay rent on time? And it's escrowed there until it's like, okay, all of those parameters have been met, and then we're going to release those funds to the person that owns the house. So I mean, that's an easy idea. Another one is just like health records. Like I said, imagine you had an app on your phone that is cryptographically encrypted, meaning that it's on the blockchain. You own the private key. Like, it's yours. It's like a token, more or less. And you go to the doctor and you can say, okay, so I'm visiting a pulmonologist for my lungs. I only want you to have access to the data that has to do with my lungs. You like tap your phone onto their little like NFC reader, and bang, they have access to a read-only version of your health records that you can carry around anywhere. You don't have to wait on one doctor to like change over your records to another doctor, and you don't have to wonder who's storing your records or has access to them. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a pretty dang crazy use case right there,
Yeah.
um basically, like I think if you're listening to this and you think, wow, I wish that my life were easier in X way, just start and think about like how blockchain or tokens could change that. I'm not saying we need to have tons of people making worthless tokens because, we have plenty of those. But this helped me think way outside of the box in terms of even what are the middlemen that it's making my life more expensive. I started realizing a lot more like, wow, money isn't as simple as I thought, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it needs to be simple. It needs to be
It
more
does.
straightforward so that one, people can actually understand it and not get taken advantage of. And that's kind of our whole job here with Gingerly is we're trying to make it understandable
Yep.
because we know that there's a lot to blockchain, but there's a way to talk about it that's significantly more simple than we typically do. Um, so let's say I wanted to start a new Web3 company. And so we create our own token to be used inside of our ecosystem. Give me so this is something that companies do that kind of bothers me sometimes, where it's like, couldn't this be transacted using a different currency? Did you really have to create this own thing where I have to pay you in this and I have to buy this thing to get that thing and then cross the wires 18, 16 different ways and then somehow I get value out of that? Um, what are the ups and downs in your view to those Web3 companies creating their own tokens and doing that?
Well, first of all, the SEC is a major
Okay,
issue.
fair.
The regulatory climate right now is awful. Gary Gensler is a
Damn it,
terrible
Gary.
SEC chairman. Yeah, like he's doing an awful job, and I would tell him
Yeah,
that to his face, so I don't feel bad saying that. Um,
just
Honestly, like,
caress his cheek.
yeah,
Listen,
listen,
Gary,
Gary,
I
but
hate to
it's a
be the one to
fact.
tell you this.
Like, if you're a company and you're giving monetary value to a token, you better look out because the SEC is probably going to come after you eventually. But I think that there's a lot of value and, like loyalty is something that companies need to survive, to be honest. Like you want and customers want to be rewarded for being loyal. It's just a fact. It feels good to be loyal. And
Hmm.
tokens are a great way to do that. So to skirt the whole issue of, like SEC problems, I see a lot of projects that have blockchain or not even blockchain based assets, like Web2 assets, like Discord tokens or whatever. It's just a ledger, right? But you have this loyalty token that's based on the same principles as the token that we're talking about. You just don't give it, it's like you don't give it a liquidity pair, which means when you create your token, say you're making pigeon token, you give it value by adding a amount like a treasury behind it, basically, of another token that already has established value.
Hmm.
So like USDC or like, Bitcoin even. But so with these loyalty tokens, you don't do that step. You skip that. And this way you're able to take advantage of the blockchain tech, which is the distributed ledger and everything, without having to worry about the monetary implications. And then companies are immediately like, well, I wanted to make, ridiculous amounts of money off of this. That defeats the whole purpose. And you're like, well, I mean, I'm sorry, it's not 2016 anymore. Governments care whether or not you have a token that's a security. So you have
Yeah.
to be more careful. But I think I think there's even so okay, to segue a little bit, it used to be hard to make a token. You used to have to like hire a dev, you used to have to like know code, you used to have your own servers, all this crazy stuff. But these days you can make a token in under a minute and there's like Squarespace level drag and drop, just fill in the blanks kind of tech where there's not really an excuse to not be experimenting with the token. It doesn't require a lot of assets to experiment, especially if you're a company. So I think
Yeah.
more people should be trying it out, to be honest.
So that was actually going to be my next question is what do I have to do to create my own token? I mean, there's ups and downs and whatnot, especially with the organizational stuff. And of course, looking
Sure.
out for the SEC, which by the way, I'm actually a proponent of regulation. I think that regulation is a good thing. It's actually important because it's the way that we liaison with our government is we say, hey, this really does need to be, we need to look out for this because this is a really easy route to have conflict or corruption sneak into these systems. We need to look out for that. 100% important. And if it was done properly, I'm a big fan. I don't think it's necessarily been done properly right now, but hopefully that will be able to continue moving in a good direction as opposed to a worse direction. Upward
Yeah.
movement is what I want there. So, or forward movement, I guess. So when I decide to create a token, how the hell do I do that?
Well, like I said, you can literally create a token in under a minute. And actually, we've got a video that's how to create a token in 27 seconds that I found yesterday on Twitter. We were going to watch it real quick. So basically, here what we're looking at is like the fill in the blank. So you can see the code changing with the ticker. There's the symbol, the the supply 420, 420, 420. It's mintable. It's burnable. These are all the permissions that they're giving to the smart contract. Obviously, he's going pretty fast. This is a Solidity compiler, which basically like puts all of the code together, and then we're going to publish it to the blockchain. So he's deploying it here, signing in MetaMask, and like boom, there you go. He's created his own token, and
Okay,
here's the blockchain like confirmation on Ethereum that it was created.
Okay, so that's
Awesome.
he's creating essentially a layer 2
Yeah, it was really fast. So like it
token.
was super fast. So basically, he's using Ethereum, right? And
Okay.
it's an ERC20 token. So an
Okay.
ERC20 is basically it functions the exact same way as Ethereum does, but instead of being Ether, it's your token, right?
Okay.
So
Does
you
it
can
live on the
send it
same
to
network?
yes, yes.
Okay. So it's
Um,
on the Ethereum blockchain is where
that
that's
is
all
correct.
stored. Okay.
Yep. Yep. So you're basically telling the Ethereum blockchain, like, here's my token, here's what it's named, here's the supply. And when I said he's ticking all of those boxes, basically he was that it's again, this is a user interface that allows you to set certain parameters. If you were coding this yourself, you could do a lot more, but they
Mhm.
give you those boxes there. Like mintable means, am I going to allow people to come pay me money to create this token? So you bring your Ethereum, you say, okay, I want to pay half an Ethereum for however many tokens that gives me. That's minting the token. And so it's basically saying in this contract, I want these functions to be allowed, and he ticks them
Mhm.
all. But you could choose which ones you wanted based off of what particular economic setup you were going for. Um, so yeah,
Interesting. So it's
it's
that easy.
really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I think if you're listening to this, you should just go try it. Like we're linking to the tweet. You can see where it was there. Look up the websites he was using and give it a try for yourself. I've done it. It's really cool. It's very empowering to think, oh, whoa, I just created an ERC20 token. And basically all it's going to cost you is gas fees. So do a little research beforehand. You can easily just Google gas fees on Ethereum right now and see what it costs. If it costs anywhere from like, in my opinion, I would say like $20 to $40, it's probably worth it if you have that amount of money to experiment with. Um, yeah, it's totally worth it. And then
Now,
we can kind of come back. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, can we do BRC tokens through that platform as well?
Yeah, that was a
Or
great
was that
question.
platform only Ethereum?
So that was just Ethereum, what we were watching, but the basic concept of what he was just doing is basically the same, no matter the chain that you're using, basically. So the difference between ERC20 and BRC20 and even SRC20, and then there's like ORC20 and several other ridiculous acronyms. Those are all built on Bitcoin, and that's why they have the B at the beginning of the name, basically. Um, it's the same type of token, except the main difference. And I think we could probably do a whole episode about the differences between ERC20 and
Mm.
BRC20. But basically said, on Ethereum, we said you're building a token on top of the Ethereum network, right? So what that requires is the Ethereum network is being run by validators who are, keeping the network going. Your token is built on infrastructure on top of that blockchain. So you require, like, you can do the code, but if you want to use the thing, you either have to use an actual command, like a Go interface to be able to interact with the blockchain, or you have to have a program or like a company that allows you to liaison, like you said, with the actual token on the blockchain. By comparison, BRC20s, the token is actually, like they call it, inscribed or, minted, if you will, onto the single smallest digit of Bitcoin, which is called a Satoshi. So if you think of it like, if we pretend that Satoshis are like physical dollar bills, it would be like a fine artist taking a dollar bill and painting a masterpiece on that particular dollar bill. And now that dollar bill, in theory, has more value than a dollar because whoever, Beeple or whatever, did an image on it, right? And so it would sell for more than a dollar.
Right.
That's the idea behind both ordinals and BRC20 tokens. I would say that BRC20 and ordinals are the same way, like they relate in the same way that ERC20s and NFTs on Ethereum relate.
Right. The difference is fungibility rather than anything really complicated. It's
Right.
just is there a whole bunch of these, or are there just one of these? I think I just mixed up my verb tense there. Sorry.
But no, you're
yeah.
on the right track. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Well, I feel like I actually understand this significantly better than I did at the top. And it's turtles all the way down essentially. It's every time I dive further and further into blockchain tech, it's like, okay, we started with blockchain, then we have crypto and tokens and fungibility here, and then there's like all of these ideas and things that kind of float out in the stratosphere that base layer all influences up the tree essentially.
Yep. Yeah.
And we're just looking at, we cover the roots, that's the blockchain, the ledgers and all that stuff. We talked about nodes, which are basically like the feeders of a tree's roots. And then we're kind of like looking at what the trunk of that is now, is how does it grow from the ground. And the way it grows from the ground is by adding functionality and utility to these mechanisms, and experimenting with, iterating on that functionality and seeing what works best and what doesn't. And I think that's actually one of the biggest arguments in my head against proof of stake, is watching, gas fees and things go through the roof on proof of stake systems and going, oh, okay, now I see why we wanted to do proof of work to begin with. And that's even somewhere in between tokens and blockchain, right? So we'll be continuing to conversate about this in the future, and dive deeper, but also try to make it understandable. I'm excited about this journey that we're on, and I hope that people out there listening are excited to go on the journey with us. Anything else you want to wrap up before we get out of here for the day?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say, we've got our tags right here below me, Purple Suede 22 and Style Pigeon. Give us a follow, and I would love to hear if you experiment with your own token. I think, like, my final word for this episode is that I truly believe that tokens aren't bad, and that's not a Bitcoin maxi thing to say. Maxis are like, no, only Bitcoin. No one should be using any other tokens. And I think that that's brain drain idiocy. We're we're stupid if we're telling people don't experiment, don't try new things, only stick to this one thing. That's crazy. If you're listening to this, go try and make your own token, come up with some crazy idea, and then tweet it at me. I would love to know what you're experimenting with, because I really love trying out new protocols, thinking about new ideas, and moving forward. Like, that's why we're here. That's why we're here on Gingerly. We want people to learn, and we want to progress, because it's up to us to make humanity and, all of that a better place. So I'm really excited about the next episode. Bitcoin Miami is between me and that episode, so it's going to be a crazy time. Gonna have to give me some of those shoes too. Don't forget to check out stylepigeon.com if you want an awesome shirt like Pigeon is wearing, or awesome shoes too. Yeah, dope times, man. Big shout out to Nick. Yeah, thanks Bitcoin Live for producing the show. And
and of course, check out our sponsor, Roundly X. Go there and use the code Gingerly to sign up, and you'll get $15 of free Bitcoin.
Get started. Appreciate y'all. Until next time.